Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to an alternate perspective, a mind-numbing journey through alternate perspectives, usually guided by our one and only woo-woo Wil Spencer. However, at the moment, Dr. Spencer is somewhere in the Blue Ridge Mountains in 5 inches of snow, and he is in minus 9-degree weather. At least that's what I got out of his broken up Skype call. So we will be woo-less tonight. However, I do have joining me my co-hijacker of Woo-Woo Wil Wonker Spencer's show, the one, the only, not so humble court jester of juju, grain ghetto grouchmeister, grim reaper of groceries, cunning linguist, caustic gnostic, 41-foot roundworm wrangler, Patrick. Don't you dare ask me what ICD 999 means. I'm taking notes, man. Jordan, the internationally renowned author.
Why, thank you. I would prefer to be considered a hitchhiker, though, kind of like the bugs that roam around in your guts.
You want to be a hitchhiker? Okay. Start walking, dude.
Okay.
Every journey begins with the first step.
That was the first trip. So I would actually, Dr. No, like to reprise our off-air conversation because I think it's actually pertinent to what's going on, and it's very timely.
Absolutely.
And I started out with a very cocky stance coming from Illinois, the state of Illinois, that, you know, we're not about to be outdone by anybody in the Blue Ridge Mountains. It's only about 15 degrees out here. We only got like 2 inches of snow. And so regardless, or as engineers like to say, irregardless of the prevailing winds of the continent, I predict that whatever weather Will is having, that it will make it contrary to the prevailing winds, any frontal system, and dump on Illinois. That's my prediction. Because we're number one.
And basically speaking, with HARP, what difference does it make what a classical weather pattern is?
Exactly, man. They make this stuff up as they go.
And they make it go in any direction as they go.
That thing they call the Arctic, whatever, the Arctic blast or whatever. Yeah, that was natural.
Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us on this 3rd of March 2014 and remind everyone that Will Spirit Radio is entirely listener supported. And so come on over to willspiritradio.com, find a donate button, click on it, and keep the wonderful radio station alive and well and bringing you this insanity. And if anybody's got any questions or comments and would like to call in, the Ma Bellway is 702-879-4770, or feel free to Skype in at wolfspirit.switchboard, the number 1. That's wolfspirit.switchboard1. And another way to support the station is to subscribe monthly to our archives for $5 a month and have access to all the recorded shows. And so, as I mentioned earlier, we are woo-less tonight. It's me and Patrick. And you got any open topics there, Patrick? Any emails from listeners? Anything we needed to go back to address? Would you like to harp it up with the weather mods and the incoming ice age?
No, actually, I wanted to continue our offline conversation about how Illinois is number one in being the most corrupt state in the union. And you made some really amusing and insightful comments on that, owing to the fact that, we have a couple governors in prison. It's actually more like, vacation time for them. And we have the greatest debt of the entire nation.
And you have a senator or congressman, whatever he was, Jesse Jackson. He's in prison. Jesse Jackson's wife is in prison. Who else is in prison in Illinois? Well, and then you have, like if we were talking before, you know, if just apply just the modicum of common sense here, okay? The White House chief of staff resigned so he could run for the mayor of Chicago, which he actually wasn't legally able to do, except they changed the laws so he could, and he didn't win the popular vote, but he's the mayor of Chicago. What does that say about the profit potential in being the mayor of Chicago?
We're number one, man. You're asking, who else is in prison. The reason I was laughing is, let's go with the short list. Just make a list of who isn't in prison or hasn't gone through that revolving door.
I don't know. Yeah, there's a question in the chat room. Jesse Jackson is in jail. Well, that's what I just heard like 2 days ago when we were talking about corrupt Chicago politicians. Heard that Jesse Jackson Jr. was and his wife was as well. So if anybody's got any time and wants to look that up, feel free. Like I said, I just heard of it. Let's see, what else we got going on there, you native Chicagoan?
I actually, it's like I'm allergic to the town. I don't want hardly any contact at all. In fact, California is actually two states. You got your Northern California, you got your Southern California. In Illinois, it is divided between Chicago and the rest of the state. And any monies that are collected for whatever reason all goes to Chicago, and the rest of the state pretty much lives barefoot with holes in the knees of their pants and wearing straw hats and smoking corncob pipes.
Well, it's actually pretty funny because New York is basically the same way. It's New York City, and they pretty much control the laws of the entire state. But outside of New York City, especially upstate New York, they're like for lack of a better expression, they're like rednecks with bad attitudes, man. Down south, I mean, the South is what it is, but there is most definitely a certain amount of old world values down here, and in New York it just seems to be the redneck sensibilities without the that old school sense of value. So they're just like nasty. When you have a bunch of cosmopolitans pretty much dictating the rules for the entire rest of the state, no good can come of that. I mean, even the sheriffs in upstate New York told the governor they weren't enforcing his gun control laws.
Oh, wow. That's amazing because they're getting it from two different angles. The feds have their desires and the state has their desires, and this is actually like the demons in Dante's Inferno fighting it out while they're not paying attention to the ones they're supposed to keep under the boiling pitch.
Well, it's happening everywhere. This isn't an Illinois thing, but this is a Connecticut thing. And since we seem to have wandered into the political arena here, and Will's not around, it's a little something different for us. But here's what happened. They passed a law in Connecticut that as of the 1st, that you had to register grandfathered in guns that were outlawed as of the 1st. So if you were in possession of a magazine that held more than 10 rounds, if you were in possession of an assault rifle prior to the 1st, then you had until then to actually register the weapon with the state. So we all know what registration's about. Registration leads to confiscation. That's the only reason you would want a registry of something. Why would you need to know where the weapon is unless you had some sort of plan to come and take it? So the 1st came and went, and basically they estimate like the less than 40,000 or less than 50,000 out of 450,000 estimated weapons were registered with the state. So basically what they did is they extended it, and they gave a 4-day grace period. And they said if you register within the 4-day grace period, that it'll be fine. So a bunch of people registered in that 4-day grace period. And then the state of Connecticut sent out a letter that said, you're in violation of the law. We will be visiting you. You have until X to turn in your weapons, or we will be visiting you and coming to confiscate them. So let us think for a moment, or noodle on it, as one of my friends would say, about the corner that the state of Connecticut just painted themselves into. You got a bunch of people who you gave a grace period to. You can't go door to door and confiscate the missing 450,000 people. So you create a little subset, probably to set some sort of example. You tell these people that they have a grace period. Then you tell them that, no, basically we lied, and turn in your weapons, you're in violation, or we're coming to take them. And the state police plans on going door to door to these addresses. And I don't know how many people there are. It's less than like 500 people, is what I heard, but I have no way to confirm it. But basically speaking, let's say it is 500 people. Those 500 people now have the support of the other 450,000 armed, pissed off people that weren't turning in or registering anyway. Now, how many state troopers are there in the state of Connecticut? I'm not thinking it's 450,000.
I appreciate your humor. Semicolon. However, comma, but what I have seen is the top agent tell the entire nation, you can keep the insurance that you have. And then he goes, oops, just fooling. And nobody did anything. And the stats that I read was that there are 3 weapons, firearms, for every person in America. There's 300,000 plus people. Now, if you just, take 100,000, or did I say 1,000? 300 million people in North America. If you took 100 million away for being too old or too young, you took another 100 million away because they're just too stupid to know which direction to point it in. That's 100 million people that now, by the mathematics, would have 9 weapons apiece. And yet, Dr. No, this nation is in the state that it's in. And so I share your humor, but I got to predicate it with, they ain't going to do nothing, man.
Well, I hear you, and I agree with you under those circumstances. However, the circumstances here are just a little bit different, I'm thinking. I'm thinking, basically speaking, nobody came and knocked on my door and put a gun to my head to sign up for Obamacare.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I need to see this through your eyes.
I'm thinking this one may be a little too up close and personal with the wrong clientele, so to speak. It's not like they're coming to take the crock pots away, so we have no more Boston bombings. It's not like they're coming to take.
I forgot about that.
Oh yeah, those evil crock pots.
Yeah, the pressure cookers, man.
Yeah.
You hurt. Don't do this. And I'm not laughing. If there were, and here's the caveat: if there were people injured at the Boston Marathon, I feel that is an unforgivable crime that needs to be punished. But we all know who does the false flag operations, and you can tell just from the photos that were circulating, the damn thing was a complete Hollywood production with all of the continuity errors that you would find on a major film. So that's why I'm laughing, because it is a joke. It is a unforgivable planetary joke.
Well, and you know what? Here's the way my mind works anyway, is if more people were, just open to the possibility. Well, here's the thing. The situation in Connecticut, the politicians have painted themselves into a corner. Okay? They're pretty much decided that they're going after a bunch of armed people who don't want to play the game in the first place. So dare we say these people are what we consider to be enlightened, okay, or somewhat awakened to the evils of the government. Now, if the rest of the population would just entertain this same possibility, okay, then perhaps these situations wouldn't occur, because the fact remains is, like you said, a bunch of people are not going to do anything, but what they are going to do is turn the other way. What they are going to do is side with the government. What they are going to do is run for the government cheese. And this is just going to exacerbate this particular situation. Because, like you said, mathematically, this is not a small amount of people that we're dealing with. Okay, we outnumber the United States military by 60-1 when it comes to civilians with weapons. Okay, so if they do decide, the politicians, if they do decide they're dumb enough to go through with this, and if the sheeple at large are ignorant enough to be convinced that this is a good idea to let the government do this, okay, how are they going to do it without, anything other than some sort of ridiculous force multipliers? Okay, I mean, like, I've been going through this in my head, and unless everybody just lays down their weapons, there's no way, or they retract this stupid thing, there's no way any good can come of this, no matter how you slice it.
Sheeple at large, man. I'm still working on that one.
Yeah. Those are the ones that haven't hit the fence yet and think they're free. The ones that think they're in a golden age and not a golden cage.
Oh, sorry. I need some oxygen, man. Okay, so I'm seeing it through your eyes, and it always goes this way. They posture. Okay, we're going to come and get them. That's like the Three Stooges with Moe always saying, "Why I oughta." So we're going to come and get them. Okay. If they don't come and get them because of the parameters that you just outlined, then the other thing will be, well, we'll buy them back from you or something just to get them off the street. And the reason I'm laughing, because I just, I firmly hold to the position that we are in hell. We're not, like, destined to go there. We've always been there, and that's the big joke for me in religion. Everybody's afraid of going to hell when they've been there the whole time. So in hell, they have had, like, turn your gun in days in certain states. And this one guy actually came with a pipe bomb, and of course they arrested him because it wasn't a gun. And it's like, wow. I have no faith in what's called the governmente, which means to steer the mind in Latin. I have no faith in my fellow man, and it's like, okay, we're on Dave's show. Dude, it's a clusterfuck. It can either and ridiculously funny or disastrously, horrible?
Well, firstly, since you were doing the Victor Borga punctuation thing, period,
Oh.
I would like, comma, to voice my opinion on this matter. Gun buy back? Excuse me? Buy back? You didn't pay for the fucking thing in the first place, okay? What's the buyback? Okay? So that whole choice of words there, like, ain't working for me. And then the other thing too is I don't even know if you heard of it. It was a while ago now, sometime last year. California had the toy gun buyback. Kids in grade school.
I love that.
I mean, okay, so somebody want to tell me if you're not smart enough to understand what Common Core curriculum is, and you're not smart enough to figure out yourself that public school is not an education, it's an indoctrination, then would somebody please explain to me how a toy gun buyback doesn't beat you over the head with a ball-peen hammer going, indoctrination, indoctrination.
And at this point, I'm always curious, though. This is maybe it's technical, maybe it's artistic. I don't know. Which part of the hammer are they using, the ball or the peen?
At this point in time, it is so humorous that I have to say they're using the ball. I mean, because they are literally having a ball. I mean, think about this. We've had shows before in the past about the personality traits of the psychopath.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things that people miss is that this is sport to them. This is entertainment. They enjoy this. Okay, we have become such easy targets and such complacent targets, and they have turned up the screws, like you're turned down the screws so tight. I mean, just to be able to get a rise out of us, they're almost victims of their own success that we are so apathetic. But every once in a while, somebody sitting there just gets that Darwin platypus of an idea and goes, hey, you know what? Let's fuck with them this way. They're having a blast with this. They're absolutely having a ball.
And this is where I'm starting to wax serious, because you said that before, and it really did give me a cold chill when you said there is a limit, though, where it is, and see, if you haven't lived on the farm, you don't know the stories of like the 80-year-old farmers that will say, yeah, we used to fish with dynamite. And they're telling the truth. They literally would go to a pond, throw dynamite in, and then scoop the fish out. So it's not an aphorism. This is what people have done. And that's the way that I look at the way the human herd is being treated. They're just tossing in sticks of dynamite and, letting the white bellies float to the surface. There's a point, though, where, and you said this, that they're getting bored with it. And that's a dangerous position to be in, because it's like, well, after you get bored with tossing dynamite into a pond, what's next?
Well, there's, the parks, the lakes, like I said, they just drop them everywhere. No place is safe, and the schemes, the plans, they're crazy, and once again, I mean, people, like you say, people go along with this. There's the ones that do nothing, and then scarier is they're the ones that think that some of this stuff is a good idea. They don't look at history. They're not taught history. They just, they close their eyes to everything except, the Jersey Shore, the Real Housewives of whatever. The list, I mean, there's plenty of web pages and emails and Facebook posts that are just ongoing compilations of the list of Barky Big Ears Obama's outright lies. I mean, they're not even thinly veiled. They're just buck-ass naked lies, and people just go along with it, and they're like, oh yeah, hail to the chief, or it hasn't hit my front door yet. And shockingly, from the most of the people that I heard in their mid 30s and up, maybe early 30s and up, Obamacare was the first thing that actually smacked them in the face personally, that it had an instantly obvious material effect on their financial situation. And so, if anything, he was probably responsible, just like he's responsible for having sold more guns than any salesman in the history of guns. I think he's also probably, smacked most people into semi-consciousness than anybody else ever has on any alternate radio station with Obamacare.
Do that to me again. Were you making an analogy between gun sales and something else?
Well, yeah, the whole thing of this, once again, everything's a game and everything's a business.
Mm-hmm.
The NR.
Either side, it's like merchants of death. Either side of the war, they're making money.
Absolutely, and this is like the classic example. The NRA writes the gun control laws. They write the gun control laws. They lobby Congress. Congress throws the laws on the floor. They stir up all this fervor. More people join the NRA. Okay? Everybody's like, oh, the NRA is a not-for-profit corporation. Well, for Christ's sake, open up a book and find out what it means to be a not-for-profit organization. It doesn't mean you don't make any money. Okay? Wayne LaPierre and the board of directors of the NRA are not going to give up their cushy little jobs. What do you do for a living? I take congressmen out to lunch. Okay? And I get paid, a huge amount of money to do it. The congressmen, they're not going to give up their free lunches, especially when, party favors is 6 digits to them. And as a sidebar, every time they do this, gun sales skyrocket. Yes, their bill, which is so patently illegal it's not funny. It passed Congress without being read by Pelosi's own admission. It was 9,000 pages then, and it's like a giant amount of pages now. He keeps adding to it without any congressional oversight or approval or any sort of votes whatsoever. I don't know if it's true or not, but I've seen pictures where people claim that this bill is 12, 13 feet tall if you pile it up. And this was the addendums put in it after it was passed. Okay, so yeah, like you said, both sides win. I mean, it's a battle. The losers are us. And once again, we're the duality thing. We're forced to pick a good side or a bad side. And Obamacare and the gun control issue seem to me, the parallel that I was drawing is they seem to me the two things that are hitting personally close to home that people just are not able to ignore anymore.
Okay, that's the point that you were trying to make that I didn't catch the first time. I concur.
Wow, you concur.
And I'm chewing, so that's why I've got the phone on mute.
I was like, wow, when we agree, the show suddenly goes quiet.
Sorry about that.
A little dissension is good.
Because I don't get any free government handouts. I got to work and eat when I can.
Well, that is because you're not one of them. They're big corporate farmers or celebrity farmers.
I don't have an Obama phone either.
Is that why you always have such bad connection?
Yeah.
No Obama phone?
Yeah, because at least if you get a phone from the government, they want to be able to hear your transmissions clearly so they can monitor you.
So, let's see. What else? You want to do more politics? You want to do more government co-option, more government corruption, more them
Well,
against us?
I don't see a delineation between any topic that we bring up on these shows. And here's the reason why. Virchow in like 1847 was actually sent out, and I'm not sure about the entire facts of this, maybe by the Prussians if they were still around. I don't remember. And he was sent out as a medical epidemiologist to investigate why there was an outbreak. Let's just say cholera. Again, I'm sorry I don't have all the facts. When he came back to report, they said, what's the cause of the epidemic? And they were expecting he would say, oh, well, it's the cholera organism, and it came from, such and such sewer, and this is where it spread from, and this is why all of these people got sick and died. He said the cause of the cholera outbreak was politics. They were outraged. They wanted a cut-and-dried answer about this, and this, and this is what we need to do about it, when he indicted the entire situation as being, and governmente in Latin means to steer the mind steerers had so fostered a situation of ill health and corruption, we're back to the Illinois theme, that the squalid living conditions led to epidemic ill health. And it was Virchow's position that politics is medicine. How could any topic, because look at what we crossed over with, Dr. No. Gun control and Obamacare. Hand in hand, man. I mean, you were talking about these same things as if there was no seam in the metal when it was rolled into a full motorcycle tank to hold the gasoline that burnt us.
Well, you already know I agree with you on that, but I guess that's part of my conditioning is how used are we to people that do listen to us and do listen to other shows, and yet they are completely unable to draw the parallels, to see the parallels, or even if they are, there are none more blind than those who will not see. The ones that, once again, they just won't admit it until it comes knocking at their door. And basically speaking, this is the point we're at now. When it comes to the amusing thing, and look at what they put in place. Okay, look at the slow evolution. First, it was, the politics, as you just said, to get people to go along. Then there's the advertising. Then there's the debt hamster wheel. Then there's the organized religions. These are basically all things to control the masses, to steer the herd, okay? And this is where the amusing part with the ball-peen hammer comes into play. They've done so much to steer the herd, to fracture the herd. They've done the divide and conquer thing. Now, at what point literally are they at now? They are literally at the point where they have seeded the police departments with basically paramilitary personnel, paramilitary training, what paramilitary? It's just straight up military, okay? They've militarized the police departments. They've militarized the police department personnel, the policies and the procedures. Protect and serve now means to protect the corporation and to serve the warrants. And they're literally at the point now where, like the model of the world that the DoD uses, the simulation of the world has achieved one-to-one granularity. Now what are they manifesting? Door-to-door, one-to-one granularity. It's not they're coming to get us anymore, it's they're coming to get me.
Nicely served. That's one of my missions, is to have people say it the way it is. That's why I use the term planetary military occupation. If you're dancing around it and calling it something that it isn't, then you can talk about that fiction all day. You wouldn't hear a bunch of Palestinians going, denying that they're under occupation when they got 50 caliber bullet holes in their living room. America is in a state of what's it called when you're hysterical and you're not even not even aware of reality in your situation.
Justin Bieber.
That, and that's where they're at.
Well, like I said, the model that the military industrial pharmacological entertainment complex uses, the simulation that they use, the artificial reality that they use, we've spoken about this before as well. They've achieved a one-to-one granularity now in their model, and it appears to me that now they are implementing that one-to-one granularity in reality. So you can't say it any more clearly than that.
And it doesn't matter if you and I say it. You and I will say it because that's the way we see it. And we will project that concept to the world. But until the world adopts that and starts saying it to make it a part of their reality, nothing will change. But here is my concern, Dr. No, and it still remains, that even if they adopted our language and said, oh, yeah, we're under occupation, my view of the population of the planet at large these days is they would shrug, say, oh, yeah, we're under occupation, and go about business as usual.
And I agree with you, those that would be left with some sort of business to go about. And, once again, therein lies the problem there. That whole, perceived unemployment rate of 8%, 9%, whatever that, I don't even pay attention anymore.
Fiction.
Yeah, that's a complete and total fiction. I mean, we're pushing 30% real unemployment. And we're still actually doing fairly good considering some of the European countries as far as unemployment goes. And once again, there's the situation. It seems to be easier in most of the rest of the world to get away with using force multipliers against the population because they've been embattled and, in conditions of war for some of those countries, hundreds, if not thousands of years. They seem to accept that as a part of life. That stuff wouldn't, that shit wouldn't flush too well. So I think that's one of the biggest reasons why it hasn't come out yet. But the fact remains is it's getting undeniable. You said it, business as usual. And this is where the psychopaths come back into the mixture again. Who's going to be left to do business? What business is there going to be? And what about all the people that have no business to do now? They've already lost everything. And the ones that are going to lose everything in the probably not so distant future. Apply your math there again that you were doing earlier, and it's a staggering amount of people that, hey, there's nothing to go along with anymore. I'm not included.
You are breaking up just a tiny bit, and I hear kind of like a buzzing in the background. I caught most of what you're saying. And what I would like to emphasize to the points that you're making is we're talking about what I call the top agent, because in 1957, the United States government was completely organized under the Administrative Procedures Act, and everything was turned into an agency, including the presidency. So there were 12 agencies and the president for that lovely, Illuminati number of 13 that they just seem to work at. So that's why I call him the top agent. The top agent is supposedly a hangover of the commander-in-chief. Well, the commander-in-chief of the military. Again, planetary military occupation. And so when a commander-in-chief is issuing executive orders on health care, it's military rules. And so that listeners will understand what you and I and Will just talk about casually, about it all being connected. Well, there's your single golden thread going through all this. We're under military occupation. The commander-in-chief of that military has issued rules, directives, that the herd will be maintained of their health to be productive for the hive under these specific conditions, of which nobody has read. Like you said, it's already 12 feet high. So we've gone from government to military to health, just like Virchow said, I think it was 1847, medicine is politics.
And medicine, most definitely bad medicine at that. Like you say, we look at the parallels, and the agent in charge, the top of the pyramid, and I laugh at all of the infighting. I laugh at all of the conspiracy theories. I laugh at all of the time that people waste. It's the Jesuits, it's the Zionists, it's the Jews, it's this, it's that, it's whatever. How about let's make this real simple? It ain't me, and it ain't you. Okay, we are not members of the group. How about just them against us? What's wrong with that? But no, they've got us. Alrighty then.
That was nice. It wasn't me.
Was it
them?
Was that you, Dave? Yes, it was. My bad. Nice musical interlude there. But yeah, I mean, they have us to the point where with one headline, one false excuse me, one false news story, and they're not even news stories anymore, they're basically opinions. Nobody reports the news anymore. We're at each other's throats. We're basically doing whatever it is that they steer us to do, like you say, government-y. And then on the other side of the coin, it's everybody's looking now at the conspiracy. Everybody's looking at, well, yeah, it's 9/11, it's Benghazi, it's this, it's that. And instead of, once again, just look up, just go up one level on the pyramid, just go up 2 levels on the pyramid, do something. But no, instead we stay on that same level and we stare at each other and we keep wondering why the shit rains down on us from above.
Which you have to absolutely love Glenn Keeley at this point, that even though shit does run downhill and it's trickling down our head like Niagara Falls, the actual true base of the pyramid, the base of the power, is buried beneath. So while everybody is looking up and distracted, that ain't command and control.
Yes, but Mr. Keeley's model, perhaps we should discuss that a little bit, because I'm pretty sure that almost nobody out there is aware of that. And if we do explain it, we'll probably get the point across of how disturbing that it is. So would you like to describe Keely's model of the base of the pyramid?
So here it is from a physics point of view. Somebody explained to me how a bunch of people wearing cloth on their heads were able to fabricate a gigantic physical structure on sand and not have it go all cattywampus, as they like to say out here in Illinois, within just like a few weeks. I'm not talking thousands of years. I'm talking, they laid these blocks with, absolute compass precision on sand, man, and they did it flat with a flat base. Are you kidding me? I've done construction. You can build a house when you have the blueprints, the architect designs plus or minus 1/16 of an inch. I'm telling you right now, that's why they invented sledgehammers. Because I don't care what happens on the paper. I don't care what kind of skill you have on the job. Man, things often don't match up. And literally you get the sledgehammer and you kind of like persuade it into place. So you're going to try to tell me that they built these monoliths and they didn't even shift? So when I came across Keely's stuff, now we're going to go into the esoteric part of it. He says everybody's looking up, the FBI, the CIA, the Interpol, the this, that, the Illuminati, the Freemasons, and up and up and up till you get to like the Queen of England at the top. And everybody's all focused up there. Their attention is up there as if it mattered. That's just in fighting what a good fighter will do. It's called a feint. You fake trying to hit somebody with one hand, and then you come around from the outside with what they weren't expecting with the other hand. And what Keely was saying is that the only way to build a stable pyramid is if there is a mirror image. So the cone pointing down into the foundation, and whereas you would have a capstone on the top, you would have the foundation stone at the very apex of this inverted pyramid. And he says that's where the true power is.
And so, what does that bring us to? That brings us to the esoteric parallel. And that parallel, quite simply, is this. You can look at the pyramid structure, you can look at the pyramid scheme, you can look at it from the base up, you can look at it from your position in the base, the part of the pyramid that is above the ground. Okay? But what we're talking about here is the fact that there is an inverted pyramid below the ground, as above, so below. And ultimately, the capstone of that pyramid is what? The capstone of that pyramid is you. It is me. It is us. It is the individual that is holding up not the pyramid, but the entire foundation of the pyramid. You don't dismantle the pyramid from the top down. You dismantle the pyramid like you described. Don't give it a base to sit on. You don't play in the pyramid and take it apart and have it collapse on you. You look for the third option. The only way to win is not to play. Give the pyramid nothing to rest on. Meaning?
Out again. Cold chill time, man. And I don't care if you repeat yourself. I think it's that important, what you just said. That inverted capstone, the foundation, the first rock that was laid is the individual, on which all other power rests.
Absolutely. And it's not even the pyramid that's the problem. It's the fact that as long as you are the foundation, when the pyramid does crumble, if you are still the foundation, they will build the cube, or they will build the orb, or they will build whatever next structure they have planned, as long as you remain the foundation for them. The only way to win is not to play. Don't give them any support. And then they can build nothing upon you anymore.
Are you old enough to remember the band The Monkees from the 1960s?
Davy Jones?
I guess so. They had a song, Zor and Zam. And part of the lyrics was, they called a war and nobody came. And so let's just recap the first part of this first hour. They want gun registration. What if nobody came? Because apparently a bunch did. They called international wars. Zor and Zam. What if nobody came? But see, it all works on an individual basis. Because an army is made up of many individuals, but there's that key word, individuals. What if everybody decided not going to participate? The entire structure would be dismantled.
And so one must ask oneself, if it is that simple, well, why doesn't anybody do it? And this has been the question that's been asked, and the answer to me has been perverted through the centuries, and the answer has become the not only the question but the control issue. Nobody wants to go first. Nobody wants to take the chance of being out there alone. So what do? We look for a leader. We are so conditioned to look for a leader, it harkens us back to that famous book that we're going to write, The Structured Guide to Free Thinking. Okay? In looking to escape our leaders, what we're looking for is another leader.
I'm in pain, man.
Okay?
And, it's because of our collection of ideas that I can explain why that happened. So I'm sorry to interrupt you. Finish your thought, and I can explain the mechanism.
Oh, go ahead. Have at it. You know exactly where I'm headed.
Okay. So because of our collective history on these stations and the things that we have shared together, if we look at the archons as an infective agent, if we look at as a biological agent, if we look at it as you have suggested that perhaps it has a fungal property to it, fungi actually have the ability to create neural networks. So the mycorrhiza in the soil, apparently, and I read it on Merkaba, so it has to be true, offers communication to all the plants within the soil through their root system. If that applies in the ground with plants, it has to apply with humans, because I do not know personally anybody in Illinois that does not have some level of candida infection. So candida is a dimorphic fungus. I think it's a quadromorph, but just for the sake of, book learning, we'll say that it is a budding structure, budding, like, the stuff that makes bread. and then it has a hyphae structure, which means it puts out roots. This rooting then has so permeated the human population that it set up a neural network that probably well beyond the threshold of our perception, maybe beyond the perception or the ability for us to pick up on a clinical level, with testing devices. These damn things are communicating to each other. Mold has risen up through what is called the highest life form of the planet to cause it to serve the mold. And so all this death and destruction that we see is planned and made to happen by the mold because, and Will love this if he's listening to the archives, the fungus eats dead and dying tissue. Therefore, it is obligated to create death because that is its food.
I like that. Is obligated to create death. What else do we know that's obligated to create death? Fiat currencies. Basically speaking, the only, you can claim that it's backed by gold, you can claim that it's backed by silver, you can claim that it's backed by the fruits of our labor, but basically speaking, the only thing that there is that backs fiat currency is death.
Bring it home for me. I like where you're going, but give me more.
Well, we're in the particular situation where, once again, it really doesn't matter to me who you call out at the top of the pyramid. The fact remains is that as the base of the pyramid, we have value issues. Those value issues have been co-opted to place value on some form of fiat currency above and beyond the value of human life. And as you say, the parasites, the archons, they must create this death. So what better way to create this death than to have us completely and totally unspelled to participate in this death? So whoever is pulling the strings at the top of the pyramid, what's dangling at the end of the strings? Historically, through generation after generation, some form of fiat currency. And so here we have what amounts to a control mechanism where the entire fruit of most people's being is to chase a piece of paper that is totally backed by death. Okay? And when we look at everybody that talks about the collapse of the system and we're in the golden age and things are going to be rebuilt, what's the first thing that they're concerned about? Well, what are we going to do for a monetary system? Oh, what are we going to do for a monetary system? You mean we're just going to replace one form of death written on a piece of paper for another form of death written on a piece of paper? Or even better than that, how about an electronic bit of death? So we can have truly archonic simulated death.
Bit death, man. You're killing me.
Yes, bit death. Hey, there you go. There's our next $1 million idea, Patrick. We're going to do our own e-currency, bit death.
It's brilliant. I really, really, really hope that the Marinator is listening, because in between, and I mean no offense to anybody, including you, I've been trying to get my meal in, so I've been away from my notebook. So regardless of that funny intro that you made of me, I haven't been taking notes, and my mind has been screaming this whole time. You got to remember what he's been saying, because, I mean, this is brilliant. What you just said is a paradigm that I have not heard spoken before that needs to get out there so that people understand exactly what they're trapped in. Because people actually got like this kind of itchy feeling with the splinter in their mind that they're in the matrix, but they can't verbalize it. They can't really see beyond the illusion. And you just broke it down. And now we're like right at the top of the hour. If we can go to break, I will 100% support everything that you said in a practical way, so it goes from an abstract concept to reality in everyday life. So here is the practical, real-world application of your groundbreaking premise that money, as we are immersed in it, is backed by death. I was listening to PBS, and they were interviewing a guy that was an activist.
This is Wolf Spirit Radio.
Pollution of all forms, but I think one of their top focuses was fracking. Because when you do frack, you put in every single toxin known to man into what should be pristine water supplies. Quite a number of these things are unable to be broken down by any means known, so they remain toxic in the soil, in the water. And he had brought up in conversation a very interesting concept, that if you are a company, a corporation, an industry, and your processes are toxic, doesn't matter if it's above ground, in the air, below ground, you can apply to the governmente, the mind stirrers, and that's why I asked you a long time ago, Dr. No, the name Archon, controller, governor. Isn't it interesting? Governmente means to steer the mind. The mind controllers, the governors of the mind are the archons. You can apply to them these things that cause death for a permit. And he said the definition of a permit is that the governmente acknowledges that the practice is harmful. The practice can be lethal, but they will permit you to do it as long as you pay them the permit fee. It's all about the money. It's all about the death.
And once again, that brings us back to Keeley and the base of the pyramid. Is as long as that is recognized, as long as we are the base, then they can build upon that whatever they want, just like they've done through the generations, whether it be the United States dollar, whether it be gold, whether it be, tally sticks, no matter what it is. Okay? There came a point in time where a transition was made, and that transition quite simply was the transition between a basically human-to-human exchange of, shall we say, values and goods and services, and it was replaced with a middleman, and that middleman was some form of currency, and that depersonalized our exchanges, that depersonalized us taking care of each other. And as a result of that, the situation that ensued was our value systems slowly, through the course of generations, started to be co-opted and corrupted. And it became, as we just described, the currency of death. And as long as our paradigm shift includes some other form of a replacement currency, some other form of a dehumanizing expression of trade or experience of trade, then the situation that's going to occur is going to be the same thing. Instead of a pyramid on top of us, there's going to be something else on top of us, and we're going to support it because, once again, we're afraid to take that first step. We're afraid to be our own leaders. We're afraid to just not support the system anymore unless somebody else leads us out of the system. And what are they going to lead us to? Like I said, just something else built on top of us.
And I believe, and the Marinator can help us out, because the Marinator alone has subjected his poor mind to listening to our broadcasts over and over again. You had brought up that very chilling idea that that single stone at the bottom of the inverted pyramid that is the base to the power structure was the individual, not some scary, oh my God, troglodyte living in the moho discontinuity with a world computer at its beck and call. It's the individual. The individual then becomes complicit. The individual then becomes responsible for their own action. And that is what you're speaking to, that people are afraid to take responsibility for them being the very source of power of what afflicts them and their fellow.
And it's not only that, it is the people who believe they are their own source of power, and in a lot of ways they do act like they are their own source of power, but once again, they're acting as that source of power within the system. They're acting as that source of power as a participant in the system, instead of acknowledging the true power that the system cannot exist without his support. Okay? They are holding the system up. They are already outside the system. They exist outside the system, and whether it be willingly, unwillingly, through programming or through voluntary means, they are participating in it. Okay, I hate using the Matrix analogy because it's so overplayed. Okay, but you exist outside the system. You are only in the system through your own, if you want to call it free will, your own free will. Okay, and to act within the system with any semblance of authority is to, follow that Gnostic perspective, the archonic perspective of anything that you do in the materium is inconsequential. It's what you do outside of the materium where your true power lies. Your true power is within you, that antimatter spark of divine source, if you want to wax spiritually on it. But it is the concept of your true power lies in being outside the system and not supporting the system in any means. So these people like the Clifford Deans, who claim to be free sovereigns, yet they're constantly in jail. Okay? These people that tell you that if you do all these crazy hocus pocus things, that you don't have to pay taxes anymore. These people that go to court and petition their slave masters for their freedom, and they don't realize the fact that win or lose, and you will lose ultimately, if you are petitioning your enslaver for your freedom, you have already lost.
Correct.
Because whether you're granted it or not, you're not free.
Right. I saw a very insightful deconstruction of the Matrix online, where a individual had made a very important point that nobody had ever addressed, that I was aware of before, that Neo had all these superhuman powers, but only in the Matrix, only in the construct. When he was outside of that artificial world, he was just as mortal and able to be killed as anybody else. He was no Superman. He was ejected out of the Matrix into a sewer.
And that is one of the reasons why I don't like to use the Matrix as an example, because there is a little bit of validity to it. Firstly, once again, for the people that aren't aware, the Matrix trilogy and the Terminator trilogy, one person, and it was basically stolen from her through Hollywood and was turned into the Terminator movies and the Matrix movies. But it is actually, the story is one unified story. And really, if you can't put those two series together and come up with the story, then you're probably not going to understand any of them anyway. But the fundamental thing here is this: as far as the programming goes, we are led to believe that if we want to exist outside of the system, we live in a sewer. That we live like rats in caves underground. That we, it's a horrible existence. And there's that one character in there that, I forget who it was, but he says, when he makes a deal to sell them out, and he says, I know the steak isn't real, I know this isn't real, the wine isn't real and everything, but it tastes real and it feels real, and that's what he wants. And, there's the negative aspect, once again, of the whole Matrix trilogy, and it's the same thing with the Terminator trilogy, is that, if you live in the base of the pyramid, if you live human to human, if you live without the control structure on top of you, you're living underground, you're living in a sewer, you're living in some sort of disgusting condition, and that they're doing you a favor by doing this. And by creating this pyramid on top of you, and by inviting you into it and allowing you into it, that they're giving you things, albeit digital simulations, like the Gnostics say, the only power the Archons have is called Hal, and that is the power of simulation. And what they claim is that, without them simulating this, that you couldn't have it on your own. But they've lied to you, and they've lied to you quite simply through this mechanism. Since the only power they have is simulation, then they have absolutely positively never invented or created anything. We created it. Okay? So anything that they are co-opting and tempting us with is by design our own creation that we did not act responsibly with, and we let get away from us. And they made it easy, and they made it synthetic, and they made it digital, and they invited us into it and convinced us that this is the only way that we could pull ourselves up from the depths of the sewer.
So I can't stop thinking in media when you're making these analogies, because hopefully if we can throw a media analogy in there, it's almost like quoting Shakespeare. To have a commonality of the meeting of the minds for somebody that's listening to us. The movie Labyrinth comes to mind, where the heroine of that story, and I mean the woman of the story, not the drug, the heroine of the story, was in like the garbage zone, and she met the bag lady, and the bag lady kept piling stuff on her back. Oh, and dearie, you need a little fuzzy bear, and you can't go along without this. And she just kept piling the weight on. And it's a beautiful analogy, like you're talking about. The pyramid was built above us with this incredible crushing weight, but the way that it was sold was that it was to free us. Unimaginable. Millions, billions of pounds of weight to free us.
And once again, what is the absurdity of it that we talk about all the time? Is that we buy into it. It is irrational as it is on the surface, as irrational as it is, as deep as you want to go. They have it so patented through tens of thousands of years that we just buy into it lock, stock, and barrel. And, people talk, they like to do the fear porn thing because fear is a big control mechanism for them. And they like to do the fear porn thing, and they like to talk about this collapse, that collapse, global wars, this wars, EMP pulses, we're coming to take your guns, we're coming to take you away, ha ha ho ho he he. They like to perpetuate the fear, okay? And once again, all the time they're perpetuating the fear. They have us convinced, like you say, that it's all to our benefit and that they are the saviors. And all of the crusaders out there that look to the next paradigm, that are looking to the quote-unquote golden age.
Oh, yeah, I love that.
Yeah, once again, they're just not seeing it for what it is. It's a golden cage. It's going to be shinier. It's going to be maybe bigger. It's going to be bigger simply because there aren't going to be as many participants in it if the psychopaths get their way. But once again, it's looking for a new paradigm in an old control system. And once again, unless you're willing to exercise your true power and your true strength and not be a part of the control system, it's just, once again, the next cage.
I like the analogy of the video game, where you have, when you start out, and this is when I read anything that has to do with ancient Indian literature, their analogies, their mythos is so vividly akin to a video game that it's actually kind of spooky. And it's only spooky because we go through life thinking that something that was written maybe 6,000 to 8,000 years ago couldn't possibly have presaged what a video game is. But these patterns are fractally self-similar. So, of course, even if they didn't know, nature itself would have made a reasonable connection with them. But it's always been my contention that they knew 6,000 to 8,000 to 10,000 years ago exactly what their end goal was. So the analogy of the video game is that we're locked in the same game. It's just a different level. And they started out the earlier levels with not too much of contention. You could go through the game and, most of these games are murderous. You're always shooting, killing, or blowing up something and collecting the money after you've done it, money or points. And then the next level gets just a little bit harder. And the next level gets a little bit harder. And it becomes a Dante's Inferno, where the punishments are eternal. They just keep going, but at different levels, they are more intense. So, as you say, quite often, the love and light crowd are looking for ascending to a new dimension. Let's just call it a different level of the video game. And you say, and I concur, and don't be shocked at that as above, so below, if it's sucked down here, why wouldn't it suck up there?
Oh, absolutely. If one more person says to me the answer to every question is love, I'm going to throw up. Because if the answer to every question is love, you got a fucking 50 on the test, and the last I heard, 50 was failing. Love is not the answer to every fucking question. But to carry your video game analogy even further, okay, as we ascend through these levels to enlightenment, okay, we go further up, the meanies become more powerful,
right?
And your light and loviness becomes more powerful as well. But there always seems to be a greater and greater challenge. And then we get to that final level where unicorn tears and rainbow farts and puppy dog scrotums are going to help us save the day. And if by chance you do beat the final level,
right,
do you know what happens?
Reset.
The game starts again automatically at level 1, even harder. You get to repeat every single level with an even greater foe.
You just described everything that I ever read of the ancient Indian texts.
That is pretty much it. The yugas, the cycles, the circles. It's I keep saying tens of thousands of years simply because that's the best that I've qualified, but I'm certain it's gone on for a lot longer than that. But this is the circle of existence. This is the circle of, if you want to call it life and death, of consciousness, of whatever. From the Gnostic perspective, the concept of reincarnation is punishment for what we got right on this plane of existence. And the Vedic perspective is actually presented more neutrally, but it's basically the same concept. I mean, let us not forget that the Christians got the concept of purgatory from the Buddhists. Okay, it's not all about reward and enlightenment. It's about discovery and understanding and empowerment and making some of the tough choices. And the bottom line is this: what it's about is understanding that ye be controlled by no one other than yourself and what you have figured out to be the best that you could possibly be in whatever plane of existence you feel that you exist in. And that's one of the things that's always been the more appealing thing about Eastern philosophy to me, is exactly that concept there. And the Gnostic perspective, the Jain perspective for the Vedics, the Jains being the oldest Vedic cosmology, is quite simply character flaws exist in every plane of existence that there is until you ultimately reconnect with the source. And no matter what plane, whether you want to slice them into dimensions or you want to make them nice and smooth and call them vibrations, no matter what plane you exist in, okay, what are you giggling at?
It's, for a physics geek, the alternative crowd wants to change everything from what you and I rightly perceive as the physical world into vibrations. Stop thinking about the physical world. It's all vibrations. Oh, the physical world in physics is vibration. You got Brownian motion. You got rotational, translational, vibratory motion within a molecule. How could you ever separate them out? It's all integrative, and yet they want to be reductive and separate out just the vibrations. If we just move to a vibratory world, then everything would be okay. Well, it's all integrated. It's all one thing. So that's why I'm laughing. I wasn't laughing at what you're saying. I'm just laughing at a world that is basically masturbating with thoughts, and they have no idea the foundations and basis of what these New Age thoughts are, because they just inherited them. There's no origination. There's no introspection. They were given yet another idea by yet another leader, and they jumped on it, and it's still bullshit.
Well, if you think about it, the foundation of disinformation is, 95% truth and 5% lies, because you really don't have to change much in any factual presentation whatsoever to completely and totally render it, for lack of a better expression, impotent. If people truly understood and studied the original concept of, say, take something like meditation, if people truly understood what the Vedic concept of meditation was for, they would look at it completely differently, because meditation was all about generating personal power. It wasn't about having light and lovey thoughts. It wasn't about wishing serenity onto the planet. It wasn't about sitting on your little tatami mat paralyzed with fear, not being able to move in three-dimensional reality, claiming how bad it is and how spiritually advanced you are while you beam fluffy bunny thoughts out into the universe. That was never a concept of meditation at all, ever, period. Okay?
I'm insane, man.
Yeah. Meditation was designed for you to channel and store and strengthen your key energy so that when you slip the mortal coil here, you could enter into the bardo, or purgatory, if you will, empowered to have more of a choice in your next incarnation than to just blindly accept the punishment of the sins of your material existence. But if you actually try to explain that to a modern day light and lover, you are the Antichrist. And quite simply, how did they do that? They did it just by leaving out a couple of little facts about what meditation is. And
Right.
if you leave out the uncomfortable bottom capstone of the pyramid, if you leave out the personal empowerment aspects of meditation, then it becomes that whole, are we serving self? Are we serving others? Love is the answer to every question, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't take much. All you have to do is drop 2 or 3 facts out of the entire concept, and you've created Madame Blavatsky's wet dream.
Don't do it, man. You cause me pain. Because, see, every time you speak, I get like, wow, I got an analogy for that. Tai Chi. Everybody knows Tai Chi. Tai Chi, that's all they talk about. Building personal energy. Tai Chi. It's if nothing else, it's a good exercise, good for your health. Build up health. Tai Chi. Tai Chi Chuan means the grand, ultimate fist. It was the highest of martial arts forms. And so, I'm sorry, man. I'm laughing every time somebody with sandals or Birkenstocks brings up the Tai Chi thing. Tai Chi Chuan, Chuan, grand, ultimate fist. So just like you said, Bob, all you have to do is like knock the one word off the end, and people just, ooze all over themselves.
I was talking about that actually Thursday night on my show. The energy management system called Kuji-in, which is another form of, if you will, Tai Chi Chuan, okay? And the combative version of it is called Kujikiri. And there's also in the Japanese Dimmak, which is death touch. And it's all the same thing. These are the highest form of the martial arts. These are the energetic martial arts. And, look at the art of Kisu, which is the art of the sword, okay? It is the art of killing with the sword. But because that became politically incorrect, the Japanese outlawed that, and then it became Kenpo, which use a bamboo substitute for a sword, and now it's a sport. Okay?
Right.
And once again, like you pointed out, all you have to do is leave out a word. All you have to do is leave out a concept. Excuse me. And and people just go gaga over it. There's an interview. It's actually pretty old, and I don't remember any of the players' names. But if you go on YouTube and you search for KGB and yoga, there's an interview with a KGB agent, and he describes how during the Cold War, everybody became fascinated with yoga, the CIA and the KGB, because it was the new age version of the deer in the headlights. They co-opted, the system had already been co-opted like most of the mystery. What'd you say, Pat?
We got a delay and you're breaking up. I just said, get the heck out of here. I'm writing this down. I finally got my notebook.
Yeah. But basically speaking, just like every mystery school had been co-opted through the generations, meditation was co-opted through the generations, and during the Cold War, especially the Russians, who were way ahead on esoteric and cytronic research and experimentation, they took way more seriousness to it, as most Easterners do. But they latched onto it completely due to the fact that this to them was the new age version of the deer in the headlights, where meditation was basically speaking, take some hallucinogens, do nothing, sit cross-legged in lotus position, and just wish happy thoughts while the tanks rolled over you. He's like, why wouldn't every, intelligence agency or covert agency that is into social engineering or population control, why wouldn't they latch on to this concept just like they latched on to synthetic hallucinogens, and just how they latched on to all this other stuff? And people don't realize this, is that due to the culture and due to society in general, the big three organized religions were exceptionally successful for controlling the herd for thousands of years. But the Industrial Revolution and urbanization brought a change in the value system whereby the big three Abrahamic religions could not control the masses the way they used to. The mass consciousness changed with the Industrial Revolution, and they needed a new substitute for the Abrahamic religions. And along comes Madame Blavatsky, her ultimate perversions of much of the sacred teachings of history, her own personal, Eastern Bloc spin on it. And then we have Alice Bailey, her number one student, who forms a company called Lucifer's Trust, who becomes the publishing company for the United Nations.
Wow.
And they have to change the name of it to Lucius Trust, because it was just too in-your-face obvious. And we're talking about the Council of Foreign Relations. We're talking about the Tavistock Institute. The fact that social engineering is a science, okay? It is not a parlor trick. It is not a philosophy. You can get degreed in this stuff. It's been studied. Trillions of dollars in the last 120, 130 years have been put into this, and its greatest prize in modern population control is the transition from, or not the transition, but picking up the stragglers of the flock that fled the big three dogmatic religions and suck them up into all the various incarnations of the light and love age. And amongst these, I include the UFO people. I include the Constitution tards. A lot of these alternate perspective people, I lump all into this new age category. The whole hippie acid rock generation. Look at what they became. They became the first entitlement generation. With their 2 mobile homes and retirement age at 65 and their guaranteed pensions, and they're going to relive their youth and get in their $500,000 luxury land yacht and keep following the Grateful Dead around. I mean, this was all engineered. This was all orchestrated. And once again, it's just, in this particular instance, it's instead of limestone, it's a shiny rainbow coating on the same pyramid that's crushing you.
Wow, nicely said. Because the pyramids apparently did have capstones that had a gold leaf on the outside. They had limestone white plaster on the stones that led up to the capstone. So these things were beacons in the desert. And all as we see now are the purposefully deconstructed ruins. Now, I have to go back and highlight what you're talking about with I call it the DIM mock, the Death Touch. if you cultivated such personal power that with your pointer finger you could kill somebody. Conversely, because I know you're just a fuzzy bear and I'm seen as the world's number one dark cloud, if we want to turn this around, consider this. If you had enough power to kill someone with a touch, if it was your intent to use energy to heal somebody, what could you accomplish?
Well, it's quite interesting you bring that up, because I was exceptionally fortunate when I first got involved in the martial arts. I got involved just basically like everybody else did, local Taekwondo class. And as far as combative martial arts go, Taekwondo is what I call force on force. It is not a very spiritual or philosophical approach to combat in any sense of the imagination. But I was good at it, and somebody noticed that I was good at it, and I got invited to an invitation-only, very private, very traditional Japanese school with an actual lineage grandmaster who had rather dubious ties to various three-letter agencies, but I didn't know that at the time. For 2 years, I was taught healing. For 2 years, we learned nothing of combat, because what we were taught was, before that was even remotely possible to learn how to harm, we must first how to learn how to heal. Because unless you know how to heal, you will never be proficient at how to harm.
So how do we get from a tradition that promoted balance to what you're talking about, people that are so easily, and I really did like your word, transitioned to just the dark side, and to go all the way back to your Bitcoin of death. Money is the currency of death. How did that happen? It happened in the same way that you're mocking these constitutionalists. What do they claim? We are a democratic republic. Well, already you got the cognitive dissonance, because a democracy is the mob rules, also known as one man, one vote, which is actually an Illuminati joke, because there is only one man that casts only one vote, and nobody is that man except for who the protocols has designated the ruler. So it's like a Zen koan. It's a joke. One man, one vote. There's your democracy. But a democracy can't be a representative republic, because what is a representative republic? It says, I have no personal power. I don't even want personal power. I'll let somebody else do it for me. And if you read the protocols of Zion, they engineered representative republics for the express purpose of fucking you over, period. And so to have a democratic, which it can't be, republic is an oxymoron, can't exist, and anybody that wants a republic has already said by proxy, I don't want to rule myself. So how does that happen on the personal level? The same way as when you go into Vegas, you exchange your money for chips. Now, money, as you have rightly described, really doesn't exist. It's just a complete fraud, but it has a number on it, a value assigned to it. And what you're doing is you're trading that initial fraud for yet another fraud called a chip that has no intrinsic value, but it has a number assigned to it. And what that does on purpose, the mafioso knows this well, is because you have exchanged something that you have personally assigned a value to, the greenback, for this chip that is a representative, and did not just say representative republic, this representative then has less value in your mind because it's not the thing. And so you're more likely to throw more of them away to a house that always wins.
And isn't it interesting that you use the casino metaphor? Because if you think about it, we talk about fractals, as above, so below. And so let's look at the casino as the matrix, the universe, the cosmos, your country, your city. You enter into the casino, okay, into their world. If you want an education in the social control of a human being, study the science and technology that goes into the design of a casino. The patterns on the carpet are designed to be disorienting so you keep your head up. The layout, the walking through, the way you're guided, the way there's no windows to isolate you from the outside world, the chemicals, the scents, and the odors that they pump through the air filtration systems, the sounds, the frequencies that are generated by the machines, okay, the attire of the women, of the men, the speech, the language that they use, okay. Once again, you're entering into a microcosm of the country or the city or the government that you exist under, okay? And this to me is like the first the sim computer game. The casino to me is one of the first sim computer games that there is, because by trading in your Federal Reserve notes for a numbered chip, not only are they reinforcing the value of the Federal Reserve note, but they're again warping your mind into the fact that, you know, the chips aren't real, okay? That you're in a fantasy land, that you're playing a game, okay? And the level of control exerted in that microcosm is the ultimate goal of the macrocosm. You know, whether we're talking about, once again, step out of the casino, the control of the local city, the control of the county, the control of the state, the control of the country, the control of the world. Okay? As above, so below. It's just that, once again, the finer the granularity gets, the easier it is to exercise the control. You don't need as many force multipliers. Every individual becomes more susceptible to it. And in your comments on democracy, was it is either Benjamin Franklin or Thomas Jefferson, the famous quote that's all over alternative news: democracy is two wolves and a sheep arguing over what's going to be for lunch. You know, you said earlier in the show, you know, that you want to call it the way it is. This is democracy. The mob rules, period. Okay? And which mob is the most powerful mob? Well,
right.
The government. Because all the government are the wolves. They are the opinions with all the guns. So I don't care whether you're a Democrat, and I'm not using the word Democrat here as representative of the concept of democracy. Whether you're a communist, a Democrat, a Republican, an agnostic, or a pussy, okay? You are the sheep. They are the wolves. They are the opinion with the gun, okay? And you worship the dollar. Okay? And the dollar is backed by death. Why else would they need all those guns?
Right. Thank you. So here is where the individual gets co-opted. Just as you said, the chips are made to give the illusion that they aren't real, to support yet another illusion to give the impression that that prior illusion was real. And people then fall into an attitude that they are playing a game. Well, I take this situation that we're in pretty seriously because people are being hurt and they're being killed. But what happens in a video game? People get hurt and killed and things get blowed up real good. And so my greatest difficulty in communicating with other human beings is they view this as just the amount of time that you can buy for a quarter. And I'm dating myself back to the days of arcades. You put the quarter in the game and you play it until your time runs out. And that's the way people approach life. I, on the other hand, take all this stuff deadly serious, and I am trying to destroy the game.
And once again, you and I and, a few other people out there, understand the concept of this. If you want to destroy the game, the first thing you need to do is get up from the fucking table. I don't care if you mark the cards. I don't care if you switch the deck. I don't care if you notch the chips. I don't care if you spray paint the chess pieces. I don't care if you change the colors of the board. I don't care. If you're sitting at the table playing the game, you will never change it. And if you beat them at 5-card stud, they will whip out a new deck of cards, and suddenly you'll be playing Texas Hold'em. And if perchance you win at Parcheesi, they'll wipe that board off the table and throw down Trouble or Monopoly. Okay? As long as you sit at that table, as long as you are the capstone of the supporting pyramid, as long as you refuse to accept the fact that you are giving them your support and consent and sometimes prayers to build a system of oppression on top of you, you can fight your entire life. You can perhaps ultimately win, only to discover that your reward is a new system of oppression that you did not see coming, because you were too blinded by your own little ego and your own little, success at petitioning your controllers for your liberation.
In filing court papers, if you read them very carefully, some of them have a prayer to the court, a petition. Only a petitioner is in a position of no leverage.
We could do entire shows on the whole court system, but we don't have to. Jordan Maxwell, Sanos Bonacci, so many people have done shows on that entire topic about the evolution of the modern system of government from actually Phoenician law. Hooked on phonics, Phoenician. We talk about this all the time, and why we're so focused on definitions. It is because we are governed by vibration and we are governed by phonetics. And by, like you always point out, if a particular phonetic vibration has 7 conflicting, discrete, different meanings, okay, you are being skull-fucked. Period.
Seven conflicting. What's that? Dissonance. Dissonant notes is like 2 notes on the piano played right next to each other.
Absolutely, cognitive dissonance, which is just a nice way of saying skull-fucked. Okay?
Call it what it is.
Yeah, cognitive dissonance is them stuffing 2 diametrically opposed concepts into your brain, giving them equal validity, and then watching in amusement as you short circuit, trying to resolve them.
Gentlemen, may I say something?
If you can find
Absolutely,
some gentlemen.
it's your radio station.
It's time to wrap it up.
Okay.
Well, thanks for
Well,
tolerating us.
Well, then I will say goodnight so that DJ Diamond Dave doesn't have to pull the plug. And thank you, as always, for the stimulating conversation, Mr. Jordan.
Right back at you.
This has been a most excellent show, gentlemen. It's time to go. We'll catch you Wednesday, folks.